please call your family, call your friends, call your kid and kin, call those that have your complexion, those that have your divine connection, and those that are truly working to bring about some universal corrections. Let them know that the state of the city is on the air. Got a lot we're going to share with you. Got a lot we're going to get into. And, of course, got a lot that we're going to share and get into and connect the dots, reveal some plots on this day, September the 11th, 2019, in which we will stop, of course, as we always do, dedicate my show to my brother and friend, Brother Eric Easton, to all of those who made it through the week in the city and the state and this country on the planet, and to the many and plenty that are stopping on this day to commemorate, continue to educate, continue to elevate, continue to agitate and ask questions, and, of course, demand answers and do as any good criminologist would always do when they come upon a scene of a crime. Ask that old universal question, Key Bono, who benefits from what we saw, what we heard, what we think we saw, what we think we heard, and then those that took the opportunity on shows and information and, of course, having that wherewithal and dedication to do the research and come back and share it with family and friends, those who would want to know of what really happened 18 years ago today, inside of America, outside of America, and, of course, slow walk it and share the information, because all you got to do is share it. And then, of course, the blood is off your hands and you've done your duty. We've done our duty so that 50 years from now, that the generations who were not born to see and to witness one of the latest of the greatest crimes against the American people, but the crimes against humanity on that day, September the 11th, 2001. And so tonight we're going to slow walk a little. I'll go back and kind of, I think, share some information. If you've listened to Brother Muhammad through the years, information that I've shared with my great teacher, Baba Dick Gregory, tried to share with others, but they weren't ready for the information. And so, as Jesus said, don't, of course, cast your pearls before the swine. Not saying that there are physical swine, right, or the pig, but if they're not ready, then the only thing you can do is share it with those that are ready, those that are aware, those that are humble enough to know that they don't know, but they want to know. So you tune to the State of the City. Phone number to get in on the conversation is 404-436-1277. But I cannot begin the show without thanking, of course, the owners of this fine station, Brother D. Williams, Brother Diamond Williams, and his fine, capable and able partner and assistant, Sister Nikki, and all of those that have made this show possible in terms of Radio on Fire and giving us access to the airwaves now for over 3 months, if not more, to come before you and share information and hopefully give you some inspiration and realize that it's not a radio show but a flow, and it is a lifeline for many and plenty to be able to grow from listening to this information. So please make sure you support Radio on Fire by going to their Cash App, which is simply $ Radio on Fire, and to support the State of the City, my Cash App is $ SOTC Muhammad, all one word, $ SOTC Muhammad. So again, you tune to the State of the City, and with that, I want to get into it. Today is September the 11th, 2019. So as I said before, if you say September the 11th or you say 911, it triggers a response inside of your brain. As we were taught growing up, of course, 411, 311, the 211, and of course, ultimately the 911. And so it's better to say September 11, 2001, because if you don't know what was, then you don't know what is, and you don't know what shall be. So you got to ask questions of what happened on September the 10th, what happened on September the 9th, what happened on September the 8th, what happened on what happened, because oftentimes when there are crimes that are committed, there's the foundation to of course, who laid the trap, who ensnared the people in the trap, who built the foundation, and then, of course, you're always following the money, as the old saying goes as well, because September the 11th was a good opportunity to go back and look at one of the questions as we ask, who benefited Wall Street, when you go back and pull up and the research. It's so much information out here, DVDs, documentaries that you can watch, that you can read. I'll give you some of the few that I know I've watched through the years that you can go back, look at, read, and they're black, brown, red, yellow, and white, because you're going to have truth, and what you got to do is be able to decipher the information, cross-reference the information, then share the information and see if their information matches up with your information. So I'm not one of the ones that get caught up in as some do, having a paralysis of the analysis, or they romanticize it, call in, tell me where you were when September the 11th happened. You know, it's the generation that lived through the age of Aquarius in the 60s, and they'll always say, tell me where you were when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Tell me where you were when Dr. King was assassinated. Tell me where you were when Malcolm X was assassinated. It's not about where you were, it's about what you did once you knew. And then, of course, what did you do to educate yourself, your family, your friends, those in your circle, and then those who were unborn and not born at the time, but they long to want to know so that they can be free in mind and body and spirit and know the truth. As the Bible says, of course, ye shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free or make you free. So you have to be free and liberated. And it would not take shows such as this if we had bold leadership, if we had real media. But the fact is, we have fake media. So the fake media was complicit in covering up the numerous crimes that took place on September the 11th, the numerous drills that were taking place, military drills, up to 13 to 22 drills that were taking place on that day. And so oftentimes when people are grieving, they can't properly, I think, be able to think, right? Analyze critically and analytically, and they get swept up in their emotions. And so what we saw when we go back and look at this is that those who were the architects of September the 11th, right? They understood and planned in their, as Paul said, we war not against flesh and blood, but rulers of the darkness of the deep, right? And principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. So there were those who understood that in order to take America off of a course that they were currently on, and the world off a course that they were currently on, that they needed a cataclysmic event. This is written of in white papers, as they say, no pun intended, white papers. One of the names of the group is PNAC, the Project for New American Century. If you don't know what it is, look it up. The Project for New American Century, who sits many of the neocons. One of them just got fired yesterday. John Bolton, one of the neocons, who was a warmonger and a war hawk and a chicken hawk. You do remember watching all the Hannah, that was Looney Tune cartoons, right? The chicken hawk, right? Now that's a chicken, right? You see some chicken hawks. They themselves wasn't going to go and fight, but they would be quick to send, as Dr. King said during the Vietnam War, they were quick to send black and brown and poor whites to go and fight for them under the auspices that you're fighting for democracy and freedom, and you're fighting for, of course, the American way. When you really was fighting for nobody but Kellogg, Brown, and Root, you're really fighting for nobody but Halliburton, fighting for Genie Energy, fighting for big oil, and the multinational corporations is who you're fighting for. So save all that crap when they be telling you and selling you that you're fighting for the American way. No, you're fighting for the multinational corporations. It's no different than when you know the history of who George Washington then was really fighting for. They was fighting for that British East Indian Company, who they were fighting for. Okay? So now, this Project for New American Century, which sits members such as Crystal. I mean, I could go on, Richard Armitage, Jeb Bush. There's so many. And I've posted a lot of this on my Facebook page. But there are those that understood that what they wanted to do was to use this cataclysmic event, which they called a Pearl Harbor style event. They wanted to use what they called and referred to as a clean break from the policies at norm. They had already had in their policies to go into Central Asia, to go into, right? 7 of the countries that still had control over their central bank, which they wanted control over their central bank. And those countries were Iran, North Korea, Libya, Syria, right? Iraq. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more. The only ones left may be North Korea. They got Libya, of course, because they used that pretext to get rid of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. They used that to go into Iraq, right? When you understand what Saddam Hussein was doing in terms of moving his currency away from the petrodollar, away from the American dollar, onto what they call an oil bourse system, BORUS. Iran is doing the same. Syria is doing the same. That pipeline that they wanted to build in Syria, which was the Taipei pipeline, TAPI, which was I believe it was Turkmenistan or Turkey, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, and Syria was going to be used as well. And so and Russia was going to be helping to build that pipeline. Russia already had, of course, and assisted Syria for years there. So when Syria wouldn't go along, then they put Syria in the crosshairs as well to go after Assad, the president of Syria. But let's bring it on back to September the 11th, 2001, because all of this was kind of laid out. The name of the operation on that day, which I'll share with you, was Project or Operation Bojinka, Bojnika, Bojinka. And if you don't know what Operation Bojinka is, I'll share part of this clip with you, talking about Operation or Project Bojinka, which means in, I think it's Croatian or Serbia language, and that's Serbia, not suburban language, Serbia language, meant loud bang. And all of this was kind of played out in movies, and there's been many who have talked about it, DVDs, which I'll share with you, from the Loose Change 1 and 2. Alex Jones, one of the first ones that really talked about it in his documentaries at that time, called 911, Rise of the Police State. Alex Jones did Endgame. There was Michael Moore, who's controlled by WME-IMG, Rahm Emanuel's brother Ari Emanuel. Michael Moore did Fahrenheit 911. There was, of course, Jordan Maxwell did several documentaries. There was Zeitgeist, Part 1, Part 2, talking about it. Trying to think what others. There was the American Free Press, which used to be in Washington, D.C., on Pennsylvania Avenue. I used to go there all the time and talk to, I think it was James, what was his name? Michael Piper Collins, who they murdered. It was Jim Tucker. There was so many others that were there that I would talk to when I would go down to the American Free Press building that was there. They're still in operation, but not what they used to be, and which they were exposing. And they did a documentation called 50 Unanswered Questions about September the 11th. Then they did one called 100 Unanswered Questions about September the 11th. And so, again, the Project for New American Century and their members, which were made up of the neocons, and they were heavily tied to, of course, the Israeli Mossad. And, of course, there were the two brothers who supposedly was in New York and just happened to be filming a documentary that they were doing, and they filmed the plane supposedly flying into the World Trade Center. What we saw on September the 11th was one of the latest, greatest crimes against the American people of deception and misdirection that was played out on the people. And unfortunately, it's late where many of them haven't recovered because they used fear as they did during the age of assassination, create that group think theory. So many wouldn't think that this was in fact an inside job with an inside mob, that many didn't want and still don't want to believe it. And so if you say that today, they'll say what the CIA created, conspiracy theorists, to say you believe in a conspiracy. Well, as I always say, the mere fact you exist, I exist, is evidence that we're not conspiracy theorists, but conspiracy realists, right? We got here because mom and dad conspired to get together. That's how we got here. It wasn't no Big Bang Theory, right? But mom and dad conspired, whether they did it overtly or covertly, right? Wasn't no Holy Ghost that came upon my mom or your mom, okay? So it was my dad, all right? So again, that's a conspiracy realist for you right there. So you tuned to the State of the City. So let's get into this now. That there were several documentations. There was, of course, much information about Wall Street that a week before September the 11th, and I've posted some of these articles on my page, but I've talked about it before, that there was one of the greatest days of insider trading since October 29th, 1929, when the stock market crashed. But on September the 11th, and a week before September the 11th, the two airlines had a put options, which is somebody was betting that the stock and those two airlines was either going to go up or was going to go down. Okay? And all of this was written about by news outside of America and some inside of America. But again, they talked about there were at least 40 or more Wall Street companies, and the biggest one that these put options went through, that they put on United and American Airlines, the two airlines. The biggest one went through a company that's right here in Baltimore, which was called Alex Brown and Son, which is right downtown. I believe they're still on South Street or Commerce Street. And the person who was the head of Alex Brown and Sons at that time, and it was Alex Brown and Deutsch, all right? They had apparently headquarters here in Baltimore, I think one in California and one in Germany, right? Might have been one in New York. Yeah, I believe there was one in New York, and the buildings they bought down because the criminals were covering up, right? When you bring the buildings down, you covering up. You look through all the smoke and mirrors, a lot of time they just trying to cover their tracks. So the company that the biggest put options went through was Alex Brown Deutsche Bank. And the head of Alex Brown Deutsche Bank at that time was Mayo Shattuck. And Mayo Shattuck left Alex Brown Deutsche Bank. And the next month, in October, he was announced as the chairman of Constellation Energy, which eventually became Exelon Energy. So I'm saying this because there's no statute of limitation on these crimes that the likes of Mayo Shattuck and others could be charged. The other person who I think was the deputy at Alex Brown Deutsche Bank was Buzzy Krongard and his brother Alex Krongard, who went on, I believe, and were part of the CIA at one point, if they're not still part of the CIA. So you can pull that article up, because there was many articles talking about this. So let me go to these clips talking about Project Bojinka. What is Project Bojinka? Then we're going to show you how Hollywood got in on the act, how many of the movies in the 90s and late 90s, there was predictive programming, and movies like The Matrix, movies like The Terminator, in which they were throwing out, people were at like marches and demonstrations, and they had 911 on their posters. Well, this was even before September the 11th, 2001. So they were telling you that something was coming on that day, because September the 11th is such a significant date when you really go back and kind of connect the dots and look at the Jewish holiday that was. But I see some of y'all never want to look at that, okay? When you start looking at the Jonathan Institute, the financial institute, that Larry Silverstein, and that all the buildings that came down or were imploded, it wasn't an explosion, but an implosion there in New York. All of the buildings were owned by Larry Silverstein. So if you want to ask Kibono who benefits, that's one person that benefited. Then Larry Silverstein, if you don't know, he put in for an insurance claim. The buildings were owned by the New York City Port Authority up until July of that year. Then the New York Port Authority and New Jersey Port Authority sells it to Larry Silverstein. How is that possible? Silverstein then takes out an insurance policy on those buildings, and he tried to put in a claim and said, since it was two planes supposedly, that he wanted $7 billion for each building. I think they gave him $7 billion for all of it, but not for the buildings. And I think we'll be able to find that clip in which you'll hear Larry Silverstein in one of the clips say that he told the engineers to pull it. When you say pull it, you're talking about implode the building, not an explosion. That's why the columns came down, because of what was inside. And I'm going to come back and talk about that, because we had some kind of strange activity in Baltimore 2 days ago. 2 days before September the 11th, downtown Baltimore was cleared out. 3 days before President Trump comes tomorrow. So we're going to have to ask, was that a pretext or a prelude of something that may go down? And then on top of that, a Baltimore City police officer was killed this past Monday named Tosa, that I haven't heard the media talk about, found dead in his home over off of East Cold Spring on Craddock Avenue, Craddock Avenue. And they tried to say it was a suicide, but they still got a police car sitting outside of his house. If it's a suicide, why you got a police car sitting outside the house? And how come the news media, how come you got to listen to Brother Muhammad in the State of the City at RadioOnFire to get this information? Why you got to listen to me to get it? Because you got fake news in the city. That's why. You got fake news. So you tune to the State of the City. But let me go to this clip talking about Operation Project Bojinka. Then we got another clip, I think, from the movie A Long Kiss Goodnight, starring Samuel Jackson and Gina Davis, in which Gina Davis played an agent called Charlie Baltimore. Not the rapper Charlie Baltimore. Don't you brothers get excited. How much she coming back out? No, they pushing Nicki Minaj a twaj, and the other girl sound like she in the second grade for the most part. Cardi B, now she talking like she in second grade. But that's not even my show tonight. I'm not going to get into that. I know I messed some of y'all up talking about them. But let me go to this clip talking about Operation Project Bojinka. Then we're going to come back, share this clip again from Long Kiss Goodnight, which was, I believe, was released in 1996 and not 1997. And which in that movie, the scene I'll share with you, that you will hear them asking the question about why are they going to blow up the World Trade Center. And it'll be laid out in the clip, as they said, it's going to be a fundraiser because Congress cut our money. So this is what the Project for New American Century essentially was saying. Not only are we going to use it as a fundraiser, they created a whole new paradigm inside of America with Department of Homeland Security, as Hitler and the boys, or the boys who controlled Hitler, did in Nazi Germany. So we'll come back, talk about that. But let me go to these clips talking about Operation Project Bojinka, and you can pull it up, Bojinka. And there were 5 targets. Let me be clear. 5 targets in Operational Project Bojinka. 5 targets was the White House, the Pentagon, the Sears Tower, which is in Chicago, the Transamerica Building, which is in San Francisco, and what's my other one? White House, Pentagon, World Trade Center. Of course, World Trade Center. Hello, World Trade Center. Okay? Those are the 5 targets. So we'll go to this clip talking about that. Why are they evacuating? When you go back and pull up and do the research, you see they evacuated all the buildings in Chicago, all the high-rises in Chicago. The Rockefeller building, I believe, is the tallest one, but they didn't evacuate that. They evacuated the Sears Tower because they knew that was a target. And the Sears Tower since then has been sold. And guess who owns that now? Larry Silverstein. It's called the Willis Tower. One of the tallest buildings, 103 floors in Chicago. Now Silverstein owns it. And then, of course, there was also the Transamerica building. Now, they just put a Transamerica downtown in Baltimore a few years ago. So keep your eyes open on that Transamerica. But let me go to this clip talking about Operation Bojinka.
Before destruction of the World Trade Center, the so-called Bojinka project to blow up a dozen planes in the air was for a time the most twisted terrorist operation ever uncovered, chillingly similar to Thursday's alleged plot, adding to speculation that the same group was behind both.
It was the kind of al-Qaeda signature: spectacular, synchronized planning, explosive devices.
The name Bojinka was adopted by al-Qaeda mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and his nephew Ramzi Youssef, a nonsense word first thought to mean Big Bang in Serbo-Croatian. The plan, according to the 9/11 Commission report, was to detonate liquid explosives on U.S. commercial jumbo jets over a 2-day period. Terrorist operatives would board the planes in Asia and place bombs set to detonate over the Pacific en route to the United States. Mohammed's nephew even pulled off a successful test run on a Philippines airline flight headed for Tokyo. Author Maria Ressa wrote about it in a book.
He carried with him on board liquid explosives. When he got on the board the plane midair, he put the bomb together. Then he slid that under the seat that he was occupying. In Cebu, in the Philippines, he got off.
The ensuing explosion killed a passenger and forced this emergency landing in Okinawa. But what kept the larger plan from being executed was little more than a lucky break. Authorities discovered a computer with Bojinka project plans along with chemicals and what appeared to be bomb-making materials at Youssef's Manila apartment after a fire. Youssef was later captured and convicted. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is also in custody. But even with the Bojinka planners neutralized, the suspicion is that people they could have trained or even recruited are those behind the plot uncovered Thursday. So if it is al-Qaeda, why the fascination with planes? First, analysts say attacks on airlines cripple commerce. Then there's the pure shock value of it, plus the fear such attacks create, and the message that government can't protect the people.
Al-Qaeda are determined to strike commercial aviation. They see that as having an enormous global impact, and they're determined to think through ways they can evade detection of explosives at airports internationally. They're absolutely determined.
And that's why the same murderous themes keep getting tried out again and again, testing, probing, and refining methods along the way. Joe Johns, CNN, Washington.
All right, that was the clip, of course, of from CNN talking about Operation or Project Bojinka. And there's a lot of information on YouTube you can pull up about Bojinka. There's an extensive one talking about what was going on in the Philippines. Interesting thing, if we played this straight and we believed that, then how come the United States military didn't invade the Philippines, but they went into Afghanistan? So again, there was the meetings that they was taking place with the Taliban, and they created Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden, which we'll talk about, and his family has always been intimately tied into the Bushes, and they actually had a construction company together called Bin Laden Construction in the Middle East. In fact, of course, when the country got locked down, following what took place, the greatest stand-down orders ever given in U.S. history, similar to what we saw when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Those were stand-down orders. Somebody ordered the United States military to stand down. Don't scramble those jet fighters, right? So they were in stand-down order because they wanted chaos to rule. So you create the problem to get the reaction and the solution, which was to create the war on terror, which was an never-ending war of perpetual enemies, some that didn't even exist. And bin Laden was a CIA agent who one of his names was Tim Osman. And I'll share with you a clip shortly with Benazir Bhutto, who had been the prime minister in Pakistan, talking about how bin Laden had been killed by Sheikh Omar. So what the hell was that Obama and Hillary Clinton was talking about when Obama was in there in 2011 talking about we finally got bin Laden? Come on, man. That was all theater. Then they killed all those Navy SEALs that went along with that lie. All of them died except one. He got shot mistakenly, they said, on the shooting range. Chris, his name escapes me right now, but y'all know who I'm talking about, all right? But let me go to this clip. I think this is the one of Long Kiss Goodnight with Samuel Jackson and Gina Davis. But there was so many other movies that you saw the predictive programming of, I think even in the movie The Fugitive, when they had the march downtown in which he was trying to get away when he played the doctor. What's the guy played in The Fugitive? His name escapes me right. Harrison Ford, right. And you see 911. When you go back and look at the Terminator, you see 911 signs, people holding them up. So they were laying it all out, telling the American people that there was something coming, and they were sending messages to those, of course, over top of the masses of the people or the sheeple, that this was about to go down. Of course, there was so much information that went out. Phone calls, as George Shultz, the Secretary of State, said. He got a phone call telling him not to get on the plane. He was coming in from San Francisco. Mayor Willie Brown, it was written about in the San Francisco Chronicle. Willie Brown got a call from Condoleezza Rice telling him not to get on that plane that morning. And there were others who were told, do not be found flying on no planes on September the 11th, because they knew what was going to go down. So anything I'm saying, I've already read, shared with you on my show and other shows, and with the late, great Bobby D. Gregory talking about. There were those that knew this, and this was the greatest stand down in the history of this generation since Pearl Harbor. So now I'll go to this clip from the movie A Long Kiss Goodnight with Samuel Jackson and Gina Davis, in which they're talking about blowing up the World Trade Center.
I'm gonna miss you, Major. You aren't ready to stay dead. You don't know the rules of the game anymore.
Tell me about it. 8 years ago, this guy was on a hit list.
Budget cuts, dear. Congress blinded us overseas. I was forced to turn to any eyes and ears I could find, even if that meant recruiting the quote-unquote bad guys here.
Budget cuts? Is that what this is about? Operation Honeymoon. Fuck me. You're running a fundraiser.
Fundraiser?
1993. World Trade Center bombing, remember? During the trial, one of the bombers claimed the CIA had advanced knowledge. The diplomat who issued the terrorist visa was CIA. It's not unthinkable they paved the way for the bombing purely to justify a budget increase.
You're telling me that you're gonna fake some terrorist thing just to scare some money out of Congress?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Hennessy, I've no idea how to fake killing 4,000 people. So we're just gonna have to do it for real. Oh, blame it on the Muslims, naturally. Then I get my funding. Good night, old girl. Timothy, I'll be in Chopper 1.
No, just her.
Sam, I'll be waiting for you to come rescue me.
Be just a minute.
Hey.
So, you plant this poor Arab to take the fall. What's going out in the tanker? Come on. I'm gonna die, I wanna know.
Okay. Chemical bomb. Chain reaction. Once started, it can't be stopped. The catalyst injected into the tanker heats up. We pull the truck into the center of town. Goes critical around midnight. Farewell. Adieu. Bang.
Now that was a clip from, again, you listen to the State of the City. That was a clip from the movie A Long Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis, of course, who played a CIA agent, Charlie Baltimore. And I think Sam Jackson played, his name was like Agent Hennessy or something, right? So, nevertheless, all that was predictive programming. That was done in 96 or 97 is when that movie was released. Well, there was 96, right? So now, on that day, we're told that 3,000 people died, right? Of course, there were those that didn't go to work on that day. Some people don't want to ever really look at that and say that they were told there were synagogues, there were museums that was closed on that day. That wasn't Rosh Hashanah. So for the most part, most of them have not explained why they didn't open up on that day. Who gave them orders not to go to school on that particular day, not to go to work on that particular day, right? Then the country's locked down. Right? Similar to in Memphis when Dr. King was assassinated. Cities locked down. Nobody can get out. Now, there was news articles written about that. I was living in Delaware at the time. And it was the USA Today, which is owned by Knight Rider. All right. And they put out in the newspaper a picture the next day that in the smoke was the face of the devil, is what they said. This was in the newspaper. They said in the smoke, in the World Trade Center, the people said they saw, like they do with Project Bluebeam, people said they saw the face of the devil, and it was an Arab face with a beard, right? It was Bin Laden. So they knew then that they was going to not, they wanted to create an enemy and then use the American people's pain, their fear, social engineer them, socially engineer them, whip them up into frenzy, and then point and direct that frenzy and that energy. Then you rally them behind the flag, not really the flag, but a rag that they're calling a flag, right? And so they said 3,000 people were killed, right? Then they came back and given this number in 3,000. So again, that was in a lot of the documentaries and the movies as well. So you had more predictive programming being laid out. One side note for you sports fans, prior to September the 11th, right? The team that was called America's team, because football is the king. The team that was called the America team was the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys have been to so many Super Bowls, right? And of course, that was always, as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talks about in her book, the Cowboys and the Indians, right? The biggest game was always the Cowboys versus the Washington Redskins. It's the recreation of war in the minds of the people, perpetual war through the use of sports and ball game. Now, here comes September the 11th. They gotta socially engineer the American people around the flag, right? Not real patriotism, because real patriotism would make you ask questions and demand answers about what really happened, as you have with the real patriots calling themselves the truth movement and the truthers that want to know what really happened. So now in football, the team that became America's team again, going back into predictive programming through signs, symbols, numerology, and gematria, the team that became America's team was the New England Patriots. If you haven't been able to figure that one out, the Patriots won their first Super Bowl after the year September the 11th, 2001. Go check the records. Then the Patriots became the so-called dynasty that they are today. No coincidence. That's the greatest show on turf, man. No coincidence. Okay? And of course, they had to have a quarterback that all America could identify with. Now, I am not saying that I ain't gonna get into the sports, but that's Patriots replaced the Cowboys as America's team when you go back and look at it. And they recreated the Patriots, gave them new uniforms, new coach, new everything. And the rest is history, as they say. Okay? So I just wanted to kind of give you that side note, if you want to know that, because I know America is built on, of course, and people live their lives vicariously through sports and these weaponized celebrity athletes for the most part. All right? So now, this is September the 11th, and America now uses that to go to war against other countries that they wanted to get control over their central bank. So now this is their way of justifying it. Then they create a Department of Homeland Security, right? Similar to what they had in Nazi Germany. And they begin to take away more of the people's rights. And if anybody question it, all you have to do is label them as being unpatriotic, label them as being an enemy of the state, or you label them as being a terrorist. And that became a word that they used to ignite fear in the people. Terrorist, 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 terrorist. Became like a rap song, but that's what they were doing. So they created that fear, and most people still live under that fear 18 years later. Fear and God can't occupy the same space. You could have fear or fight or flight for 30 seconds, for a minute, but it's lasted for some people inside this country, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, for the last 18 years. So much so that through this Department of Homeland Security, that now when you go to the airport, you got to go through stuff that somebody that's coming in the country illegally don't even have to go through. You know what I mean? I'd go Greyhound rather than go through all that. You go to Greyhound, you put all the luggage you want on. You ain't going through no strip search when you go Greyhound. Take your shoes off, bend over to the front, touch your toes, do a cavity search. You adjust to injustices, as Dr. King said. And once they got you bending over to see how much you will accept, they know they'll keep you bending, right? And this is what's happening now since September the 11th. And no one in Congress or the Senate has called for a repeal of the Homeland Security Act. Because again, billions of dollars, man, have gone toward Homeland Security sometimes without no real oversight. So again, we're going to go to this clip talking about Osama bin Laden, because bin Laden's been dead. Some said that bin Laden died in a hospital in Saudi Arabia, that bin Laden died due to kidney failure. But I got a clip, of course, of an interview that David Frost did with Benazir Bhutto, who was the prime minister of Pakistan. And in this video, she says Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered Osama bin Laden. Also, when you stop and think about it, the only person that was arrested for a crime on September the 11th, 2001, think about it. With all this war on this and war on that, the only person got arrested was a French nationalist by the name of Zacharias Moussaoui. He got arrested because he didn't have a passport. That's the only one. Now, there's some people that's in Guantanamo Bay since then that's been arrested, and some of them ain't all Arabs, man. So as we've been telling you about some of these tribunals that may be going down, keep your eyes open, because could be some Bushes, could be some Cheneys, could be some others that may eventually be arrested and charged and taken down to Guantanamo Bay. And this is one of the things that's happened where Trump was at least talking about September the 11th and that commission, which came back and excluded 19 to 28 pages, I think. And in them, of course, was talking about Saudi Arabia's role, that you had elements within inside the United States government, rogue elements. You had the Israeli Mossad, you had the Arabs, in terms of the Saudis or the Fraudis, that when the cities were locked down, it was written about in newspapers how, I think it was the FBI, the CIA, flew into Los Angeles, flew into D.C., flew into, I think it was Miami, and flew into Boston and rounded up the bin Laden family members that were inside of America, while Arabs were being pulled off planes, while Arabs who had nothing to do with this were being rounded up. Some were being tortured. You had the United States, I believe it was either the Department of Defense, one of those departments under George W. Bush. And Colin Powell was asked about it. And he acted like he had amnesia about it. But they rounded up the bin Laden family and flew them safely back to Saudi Arabia. That was written about. Then it was written about how across the sea, across the river from New York over in New Jersey, of the Zionist Jewish Mossad agents who was disguised as college moving students. You got to watch them because they will disguise themselves as these moving companies around here coming into your communities. And they said 120 of them were arrested as well. That they were cheering when the planes hit the World Trade Center. And then they were arrested by the FBI only to be told later by Colin Powell from orders from Dick Cheney, who was running things on that day, to release those Israeli Mossad students or those Israeli Mossad military personnel that were caught inside of America. Now, most Americans don't even know this information. And some don't even want to have no conversation about it. But, of course, one of the other beneficiaries of September the 11th was the Israeli government, who could now use that as part of the bigger war against countries in the Middle East that they wanted to get rid of as well. So, again, you tune to the State of the City, but you can pull it up. Washington Post and others wrote about, again, the Israeli Mossad agents, students, etc., that were arrested only to be released, right? While the American people, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, were being subjected to all types of violation of their rights just to get on the plane, man. This is what happened. And so they use your hurt, your pain, your disbelief to begin to question your sanity, your humanity, whether you were a patriot or not. And a real patriot would question everything. Not the patriot they want you to be. They want you to be part of patriotism, but not really stopping to ask the questions that we needed to ask. But let me see, we got that clip of Benazir Bhutto talking about Osama bin Laden. Then we got this other clip called 10 Unanswered Questions, right? Or 10 Shocking Conspiracies about September the 11th, 2001. So here now, I think is the interview with Benazir Bhutto talking about.
Were they members of or associated with the government?
Yes, well, one of them is a very key figure in security. He's a former military officer. He is someone that has had dealings with Jaish-e-Mohammed, one of the banned groups, with Maulana Azhar, who was in an Indian jail for decapitating 3 British tourists and 3 American tourists. And he also had dealings with Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered Osama bin Laden. Now, I know that having dealings with people does not necessarily mean direct evidence, but I also know that internal security has totally collapsed in Pakistan.
So she said, Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered, right? Osama. She didn't hesitate when she said that, did she? There's no hesitation in her voice, right? At all. 2 weeks later, she was shot and killed. You understand? She let the cat out the bag. And of course, you know, since then, David Frost has died. She said, Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered. And of course, you know, there were about, I don't know how many Osama bin Ladens or Osama Bush Lion, right? I don't know how many bin Ladens they had. Seemed like they had about 50 bin Ladens. Every time you looked around, I don't know how he was, if he was living in the cave, I don't know how he was getting all that Clairol, right? He had a brown beard, a gray beard, a black beard, you know. You say, wait a minute, is he a Muslim or a pirate? You know what I mean? So this is what we saw. And he was coming out with more CDs than Run DMC, wasn't he? Every time you turn around, they had a Bin Laden tape coming out, right? You say, man, Run DMC ain't put out no new material. Puffy and Bad Boy hadn't put out no more new material like he had him putting material out, man. He's like, wait a minute. The man's supposedly living in a cave, but he could find CNN and all this other news to keep putting the tape in their hand, man. Y'all haven't been able to figure that one out, man. It was straight out of, what's that movie, Wag the Dog? right? Wag the dog, man, where they can make a video somewhere and clip it all together and then put it out there and give it to the American people. And that's what they were doing. So you tuned to the State of the City. Wanted to share that with you. Now let me go to this clip quickly because there's so much more I could talk about on September the 11th, but I'm just giving you a little of what we know in terms of September the 11th. And as I said, always stopping to ask, like a good criminologist, key bono, who benefits? Who benefited physically, who benefited politically, who benefited financially, right? Who benefited morally, in terms of they begin to say that they had the moral majority and they was in the right. Then Bush got reelected off of this, right? So you know that that's one of the persons who benefited from it. Dick Cheney and Halliburton got all the contracts over there, right? So there's others who benefited as well. Halliburton is still over there. Kellogg, Brown, and Root, which worked under Halliburton, still there. The big military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about is who benefited. And anybody that would come in the office and say they're going to roll back having United States military personnel in those countries, they begin to look at them, of course, right, with contempt. So if Trump say he downsizing, then what are you doing, Trump? Don't you know that's how money make over there? Obama didn't downsize. You think Obama expanded when he went after Muammar Gaddafi. Obama expanded when he went after President Assad in Syria. Then after they got rid of Al-Qaeda and couldn't use Al-Qaeda no more, because you had Al-Qaeda that controlled Al-Qaeda, then they started setting up ISIS, Al-Nusra, some of these Al-Shabaab, some of these other groups. So they needed to have a war on terrorism abroad and then bring it on home and say they're going to have a war on terror inside of America, which they can begin to target blacks and those inside of the country who they saw as an enemy of the state, because then it was that movie that came out as well with Will Smith later on, Enemy of the State, which I'm going to bring it on home to Baltimore when I talk about this so-called spy plane in the sky that they want to bring back into Baltimore City, which it was illegal when they bought it here before. So I don't know why the architect of that, Ross McNutt, and his band of Zig Nuts and Nutty Buddies and Squirrel Nuts and all them other nuts, they can hold these nuts, haven't been arrested by now. They should be arrested and charged because last I checked, voyeurism is illegal. Is that right? I can't come to your house and fly my drone, you shoot it down. I can't come into your house with my phone and record your wife and look up her skirt or look down her shirt. It's illegal. So aerial voyeurism, whether it's being financed by some billionaire hedge fund owner, John Arnold and his wife Laura Arnold, with their clearly perverted sex acts that they taken from the boardroom in their bedroom to the cities in America, in Baltimore and one, we call this no more than, what they call that? What's that movie, 50 Shades of Grey? Right? That 50 Shades of Grey voyeurism that they want to unleash on Baltimore City. That they want to record all our actions, man. And the city of Baltimore and state of Maryland says you cannot record a person without having their permission. So again, if and they just had a rabbi, what was that rabbi named Frundell, that was putting cameras in the synagogue and taking pictures of the girls, the Jewish girls, while they were showering. They charged him and he got sentenced, right? Then they just had a guy, I don't know if you saw the other day in the Sun paper, a guy that worked as security at the convention center. He just got arrested. They trying to keep that story quiet because they say this one's going to be bigger than Dr. Nikita Levy over at Johns Hopkins when they were videotaping all the women that was coming in at the OBGYN clinic over there, right? And they killed him and they tried to kill that story quickly, man. So the city solicitor, Andre Davis, a former judge, has been in negotiation with the company that was using the convention center. You know, they were bringing all the little girls come in for cheerleading competition. So this guy who worked as security, he was situating the cameras so that he manipulated the cameras so that he could see the girls when they undressing and nude and everything, clearly getting, excited and stimulated from it. So they call that voyeurism. So voyeurism doesn't have to just be about sex. It could be about somebody taking delight in your pain for their gain. So clearly Ross McNutt, right, is having this wet dream and premature ejaculation, if I can just keep it 100, and then getting people like P.M. Smith and others to co-sign for him. The Christina Flowers, the Archie Williams, and somebody else, some guy named Steven something sent me a Facebook post. For what, man? Y'all don't even understand when a man is doing that to you, he's supposed to be charged and arrested, man. If it's wrong, if I wish you would fly the plane over my house, I shoot it down and hope you be in the plane when I shoot it down. I wish you would fly it over my house. But the question from the ACLU and all these civil rights organizations should be, how come Ross McNutt hasn't been arrested in charge? If the rabbi was arrested in charge for putting the cameras up and taking pictures of Jewish girls while they were taking showers and changing, if the guy, who I believe was a white guy, I don't have the article in front of me, but it was in the article, in the paper, it's on my Facebook page, and the city don't know how many, if they will have a class action lawsuit. And if this security officer was doing it to little girls that was coming in for the cheerleading competition, how many other women was he doing this to? That the city is trying to squash this so that the people don't know that this was going on at the Baltimore Convention Center. And if Ross McNutt need a job, last I checked, the Baltimore City Police Department said they got 500 openings, man. Let him go put an application in to be a police officer. Go let him put an application in to join, what they call that, Foxtrot, the helicopters. Put an application in, join Foxtrot. But don't try to tell our people that you can use persistent surveillance solution, then change the name to community support to solve crime in Baltimore City. When you're based out of Dayton, Ohio, the people in Dayton, Ohio didn't want this spy in the what do you call it? The spy in the sky. They didn't want it. So yet you're gonna come to Baltimore and try to get in on Baltimore City. Then to have it bankrolled by two people or one person who is a hedge fund owner who left Enron, John Arnold, and his wife Laura Arnold. So they want to use this, and clearly they're now giving money to Governor Hogan, because Hogan, who came here yesterday and had a meeting again with your Jack in the Box mayor, Jack Young, telling him he gonna give him $21 million, but part of that but first you said I'm pledging $21 million. How the hell you gonna pledge? Look, man, I'll pledge to the March of Dimes if I want. I can pledge to Jerry Lewis Muscular Dystrophy Foundation. I can pledge to St. Jude's. I can pledge to some black charities. That's how you pledge. But $21 million of taxpayers' money, last I checked, is not no damn pledge, chump. That's our money. But clearly Hogan is taking money, and we'll check the campaign finance reports, but he clearly is taking money, as I know, from the Koch brothers, money from Michael Bloomberg, money from John and Laura Arnold. So now he wants to push their agenda in Baltimore City. He ain't saying use that spy plane in Pikesville, because them Jews wouldn't go for that. I remember when Ehrlich was the governor, and down in Montgomery County, they had state troopers putting on nighttime gargles, and they were looking at people who didn't have seatbelts on and were pulling them over, writing tickets, man. Then white people down there in rich-ass Montgomery County told Ehrlich, get your boys up out of here, man. And Ehrlich told them cease and desist on doing something like that. But now we see this governor showing his true colors, man, right? That he gonna use black women, black men, black children pain in Baltimore City to say because you got lazy police officers. Another one that just got charged in the gun trace task force yesterday, another one, Carmen Vignola, something like that, who was planting guns along with Keith Gladstone, another Jewish. We told you about Sergeant Gladstone, all right? Now, they said it was a third officer that they was going to get a BB gun from. And they were taking them BB guns and planting it on brothers, man. So Governor Hogan, as we had on our show the other day, two brothers, or one brother, Clarence Shipley, brother Scooter, and there's four other brothers that's been exonerated, meaning they didn't commit the crimes. They've been exonerated. They want to be compensated. They asking for $12 million from Governor Hogan and those that sit on the Board of Public Works, which is the treasurer, and Maryland Comptroller Peter Francho. Rather than Governor Hogan address that, he comes to Baltimore City and tells Jack Young he's going to give him money, which is our money, but he got to let these spy planes come back to Baltimore City. So that lets you see that Governor Hogan should register as a lobbyist for Ross McNutt, Persistent Surveillance Solution, or for the ones that are funding this, which is John and Laura Arnold. That's the crimes of them, and they should be arrested because when they had their plane up, they didn't have our permission. So if they didn't have our permission, then that's illegal, which means they're supposed to be charged. So for some to say we should have a debate, no, ain't nothing to debate, chump. If what they did was illegal, they should be charged for it. If they put a camera inside of the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, and videotaping Jewish men and Jewish women and Jewish children, they would be arrested and charged. So to put that camera up there was just aerial voyeurism. That's what it was. Nothing more, nothing less. We ain't debating nothing about that. His ass should be charged and arrested. And if he not, then that means that your governor's a coward, your mayor's a coward, most of your elected officials are cowards. That means your ministers, like P.M. Smith, are cowards because he don't want to call it. He don't want to call a spade for what it is because he getting paid or getting laid running around with Ross McNutt. That clearly must be what it is. Talking to P.M. Smith or Huber Memorial Church. Some of you running around here trying to lift him up like a hero. As I said before, please stop trying to make these zeros some heroes. Because he's not a hero at all. He's a zero. And I know him and know him well. Checked them, undressed them, stressed them, impressed them once before, and don't have no problem doing it again. Now run tell that. We're going to come back to this clip of 10 unanswered or the 10 shocking conspiracies of 9/11. Then I'm going to bring it on home to Baltimore and talk about that van or that perhaps predictive programming or that dry run that took place on Monday, 2 days before September the 11th, and the killing of this police officer on Monday as well. Simultaneously, all this was taking place. Then the transformer supposedly that blew over in Harbor East while all this was going on. Now some of y'all, you don't know how to use what we call deductive reasoning and say, could this be tied to something else that they're about to unleash on you in Baltimore City? And why is it there always a black officer keep getting popped? You mean no white officers getting popped? Why it got to be a black man, and y'all black officers don't say nothing. Y'all ain't, Clyde Boatwright ain't gonna open his mouth up about it. Vanguard Justice Society. So you got to listen to Brother Muhammad tell you that another officer, Officer Tosin, found dead in his home over there on Craddock Avenue off of East Coast Spring in St. George's. Tell me that he used to be a partner of Officer Sean Suter. So the plot thickens, the cover-ups quicken and slickens, and you know what they say, the cover-up is always worse than the crime, all right? The cover-up is always worse than the crime, all right? And just have to drop a dime on that one. But let me go to that piece. I think we got the 10 shocking questions or conspiracies regarding September the 11th. We'll go to that, then we'll come back and open up the line shortly before I talk about, I'm going to talk about Monday, what happened in Baltimore Monday for those of you that might be watching around the country, because the police and everything that took place on that day, I mean, the city was basically downtown, commerce interrupted, and they haven't answered no real questions about why they interrupted all that commerce in the city. The mayor didn't have and show that he is incompetent. He couldn't organize and get city workers. He couldn't get parking control enforcement out there to direct traffic in the city. Traffic was locked down here, there, and every damn where. I mean, even police wasn't out there directing no traffic beyond Pratt Street and Charles Street. I'm right in front of the main police station on 83 and President Street, and wasn't no officers out there directing no traffic. Parking control attendants, traffic enforcement, nobody was home, man. So it lets you see if you had another incident or critical incident or crisis that they gonna be in stand down mode and you gonna be on your own is what they were showing you. We will be on our own based on leaving it up to them because they showing they ain't gonna do a damn thing. Okay? So let me go to this clip talking about the shocking 10 conspiracies of 9/11 and then we'll be back with more of the state of the city.
10 shocking conspiracies about 9/11. Number 10. How did Building 7 collapse? 7 hours after the final collapse of the Twin Towers, Building 7 of the World Trade Center collapsed. It was the first and only steel skyscraper in the world to collapse because of fire. Despite the collapse making architectural history, all the thousands of tons of steel were taken away to be melted. This removed the possibility of analyzing the steel and explaining how it officially collapsed. Conspiracy theorists argue that Building 7 was brought down by a controlled demolition. However, the National Institute of Standards and Technology concluded that it collapsed due to its unusual design. It had restricted foundations due to being built over a subway. As firefighters focused on saving lives rather than putting out building fires, Building 7 burned long enough to weaken and break the beams that held the steel structure together, eventually causing it to collapse. Number 9. Did a missile hit the Pentagon? At 9:43 a.m., a Boeing 757 commercial plane flew into the Pentagon. Conspiracy theorists believe that the impact on the building did not reflect the size of the plane, and instead claim that the Pentagon was hit by a missile attack. However, remnants of the airplane have been spotted in photographs of the Pentagon attack, and eyewitness accounts recall an airplane flying into the building. The conspiracy centers around a 3.66 meter impact hole in the Pentagon, which theorists believe to be the missile impact point. This was in fact the Boeing 757's landing gear, which punctured the wall and was found nearby. The main damage to the building was 18.3 meters wide, and forensic evidence shows that the plane lost its wings before impact, making it the perfect size for the plane. Number 8. Did people profit from the 9/11 attacks? In the run-up to the 9/11 attacks, a large number of puts were made against American Airlines, United Airlines, and organizations with tenancies in the World Trade Center. A put is a bet made for stocks to fall, which of course they did. American Airlines stock prices fell by 39%, which translated to around $5 million total profit for those who bet that the stock would fall. These facts have led some to believe that the number of put options increased so dramatically because some people knew that they would profit from deaths caused by 9/11. The Journal of Business states that there was an abnormal measure of activity on the days leading up to September 11, which is consistent with investors trading with advanced knowledge of the attacks.
That's right.
Number 7. Why were the hijacked planes not shot down? Between the first plane hitting the World Trade Center and the fourth plane crash landing in Pennsylvania, there was over an hour for the US military to formulate a response. The fact that none of the planes were intercepted by Air Force jets, especially after the first tower was hit, has led to conspiracy theories that NORAD was deliberately told to stand down and let the attacks occur. It turns out one group of fighters was scrambled, but they headed out to sea, away from the unfolding attacks. However, NORAD wasn't notified about the first plane hijacking until 8 minutes before the plane hit the tower, and 2 jets were scrambled but were still south of Long Island when the second tower was attacked. NORAD didn't even receive information about the fourth plane in Pennsylvania until 3 minutes after it had crashed, making it impossible to respond. Number 6. Did intelligence services have prior knowledge? On May 1st, 2001, the CIA warned the White House that a group within the US was planning a terrorist attack. Over the next few months, other warnings were made. On August 6, 2001, President Bush received a classified document prepared by US intelligence agencies entitled Bin Laden Determined to Strike in US. The memo stated that FBI information indicates patterns of suspicious activity in this country, consistent with preparations for hijackings or other types of attacks. Despite all the warnings, no preparation seemed to have taken place, and there were no warnings made to the public about the suspected terrorist attack. In fact, following 9/11, the White House denied it had any specific intelligence about an impending attack, but these memos seem to indicate otherwise. Number 5. Terrorist recruitment. Former counter-terrorism advisor Richard Clarke has made the explosive allegation that the CIA tried to recruit 9/11 hijackers. Before the attacks, the CIA withheld crucial information from the government that 2 Saudi jihadists had arrived in the US. They had attended a terrorist gathering in Malaysia just days before. These same terrorists went on to become suicide hijackers on 9/11. Why would the CIA hide this information from the White House for so long? One theory is that the agency was trying to secretly hire the terrorists to work undercover in Al-Qaeda. The CIA has called these accusations baseless, but the cover-up still has government officials suspicious of the agency's true motives. Number 4. Trillion-dollar cover-up. On September 10th, 2001, the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, declared war on the Pentagon bureaucracy. Rumsfeld claimed that America's Department of Defense was wasting vast amounts of money on the military. In fact, he announced that the US government had lost $2.3 trillion and couldn't account for 25% of its military spending. Rumsfeld arranged to change the Pentagon spending program the next day. But, perhaps conveniently for the Bush administration, the country was victim to a terrorist attack on September 11th, and Rumsfeld's admission received scant news coverage. Officials later claimed that the money was never truly lost, but untracked in a complex accountability system. Number 3. What happened to the flight's black boxes? Flight recorders are near indestructible instruments, which are required on all passenger planes to keep track of the plane's speed, altitude,
burned up, but they said they found a hijacker's what they said, if a driver's license.
But on September,
they found a driver's license.
Paramedic and firefighter did discover 2 damaged black boxes.
And fake news. They were fake news before Trump said fake news. We've been said they were fake news.
Claiming that it helped to analyze.
He's just catching up to us.
The FBI claimed were missing. Why would US intelligence want to conceal such vital information? Conspiracy theorists believe that this is further proof that 9/11 was an inside job to initiate the war on terror.
That's right.
Number 2. What happened to Flight 93? United Airlines Flight 93 was one of the 4 planes that was hijacked. Using the airphones on board, the passengers soon learned that their plane was destined for a terrorist attack.
That was when they talking about let's roll
and overthrow the terrorists,
making up all kind of stuff with that one.
In the process. However, some argue that Flight 93 was really shot down by a missile from the government to prevent it hitting the planned target. A jet was seen by multiple eyewitnesses flying over the debris shortly after the crash, but authorities have stated this was a private aircraft asked to investigate the crash site. Number 1. Were explosives used to bring down the towers? Spawned by witness reports of explosive sounds and the way in which the buildings collapsed, some people believe that the Twin Towers were brought down intentionally using explosives. Leslie Robertson, the original structural engineer of the Twin Towers, has explained that the sound of explosions was in fact caused by the banging of steel floors collapsing on top of each other. This was coupled with small blast noises made by the air being squeezed out of the buildings as they gave way. Rescue workers found no
coming down.
Boom, 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 boom on the site, but physicist Stephen Jones believes thermite was used to demolish them.
Thermite, right? Stephen Jones. I think he's at Brigham Young.
If you found this video interesting, then be sure to check out Did Bush Let 9/11 Happen? That's over all-time conspiracies.
All right, that was one of the videotapes. 10 conspiracies. There were so many, but they weren't conspiracies. They were realities of what happened on September 11th. But of course, you got to be willing to do your own research. Got to be willing to think. What does it say? Think outside the box. Taco Bell say think outside the bun. Hurt say you better think outside the car, but you better be thinking. That's the important thing. And not go along and allow yourself to be socially engineered and steered and feared when you see these things happening. So before we open up the lines, on Monday in Baltimore, for those that may not know, around 11 o'clock, 11:30, I'm driving through downtown, and I see about 5 black SUVs. Maybe it was 4 black, maybe 1 white. And I looked to my left, and I saw they had 911 insignia on the vans, or the SUVs. Next thing I know, I saw fire trucks. This is by the convention center. And so traffic was blocked right there on Pratt. I guess that would be Charles Street. So I made a right by the convention center, doubled back, went up Conway Street, went across the light rail, went through the Oreo Camden Yard, and went out Russell Street. All right? So this is where you better know your terrain. Let's be clear about that. Don't be sitting around waiting on no damn Uber driver that need GPS. You better know some WePS, some BPS, and some MEPS, because when stuff go down, you better know how to move. That's the bottom line. They tell you go right, you might want to go left. They tell you go up, you might want to go down. Okay? So, nevertheless, story broke. I turned on WBAL radio. They say, well, we got news that there's a car fire inside of a garage downtown at 100 Pratt Street. This is what they said. The initial reports. Always, as Bobby D. Gregory taught me, listen to what they say in the first 24 to 48 hours, okay? All right? Then after that, everything else they're going to begin you is the spin. Pardon my the bullshit. All right, let's just get right to it, okay? So now, they said it was a white car on fire inside of a building. We said, well, why are y'all vacating, why are y'all evacuating T. Rowe Price and all these other buildings downtown then, right? So you got to check it. This is on 9/9. So you always got to look at the number 9/9, okay? All right, when this was going down. And if you add up, well, let's keep going. All right, so now, we told it, then they said it was a gasoline leak. There was a white van after that, and the van was leaking gasoline. So I left the city, went south toward Arundel Mills. I came back around 1:30, and still most of the city shut down, downtown for the most part, gridlock. I'm noticing no traffic control enforcement officers out unless they were out in that little small area around Pratt and Charles Street. I didn't see any, right? I'm looking for police to be directing traffic away from that area and so that the city wouldn't be gridlocked. But everywhere you went downtown in that area, it was gridlocked. I'm coming down 83 to go toward, said hotel, Four Seasons, right there at International Drive, 83 gridlock coming down. At the end of 83, you come out on Fayette Street and President Street, which 83 becomes, or the JFX as you know it. There's no police at the bottom of that. The next close police, and that's in front of the main police station. They're not even, and all traffic coming left with that arrow trying to turn on the Fayette is backing up traffic. Nobody's there. Nobody's home, man. It's like the lights are on, nobody's home. The city's in a crisis. You don't see the mayor on TV, on radio, directing. And they have a city Department of Emergency Management called BEMA, Baltimore Emergency Management Agency. Nobody's out directing no traffic. Then we finally get to our destination over near that Hopkins Cary Business School. And then I'm over near the Marriott where the president's going to be tomorrow and the Republicans for their conference or retreat at the Marriott waterfront over on 700 Alisana Street. So I'm going away from where all the congestion is, right? The gridlock. I go up Boston Street because I got to get to the highway. So I'm going up Boston Street. I turn on the Exeter Hall by the Whole Foods. All the lights out. All the lights out from Exeter, Fleet Street, going all the way up. I think it was either up to Broadway or to Boston. All the lights out, man. Nobody's out directing no traffic. So it lets you see that either this was a dry run or a dress rehearsal for something else. The people couldn't get back into their office buildings. People couldn't get to their cars, right? I mean, this was real. Then they said that after 6 o'clock, everybody got the green light to go back inside. I mean, this is since 11 o'clock now. Commerce is stopped, right? And now they've yet to explain what really happened. So they initially said it was a white car, then it was a white van, then we see them tow out an old dirty gray van, look like something off of some, I don't know, some 70 TV show or something, right? And so I deliver, products. So usually if you go in any of them vans, go any of those garages, you got a dock master, you got to sign in, right? You got to show ID, and they might have, I haven't heard it publicly, right? Say who was the registered owner of the van? Who parked that van there? They said it was somebody apparently trying to siphon off some oil. This is what we were told. And they said it was 6,600 gallons of oil leaking. Say, who's standing there counting, man? Diesel fuel? Who's standing there counting, right? And all this is 2 days before September the 11th, right? 9/11 commonly. And then 3 days before President Trump comes tomorrow. So we don't know if this was a dry run for something else that may go down. So as I always say, stay watchful and stay vigilant during this time of year, because you don't know what they have that they may unleash in this city, which is so close to Washington, D.C., in this region, which is so close to Washington, D.C. So you got to stay watchful. Then I got the news that another black Baltimore City police officer was killed, right? But the police, who haven't really talked about it, the mayor hasn't talked about it, the police commissioner hasn't talked about it. That's why you got to listen to Brother Muhammad, because I get the news before that. We are the news. Damn the news before. We are the news around here. All right? We'll put our record up against anybody else's record in this city, pound for pound. Myself, Brother David Johnson, Brother Donald Smith, Brother David Anthony Wiggins, one or two more. Put our record up against anybody else in this town, man. Right? Because we got a long, protracted history. We ain't new to this. We true to this. You got a lot of people that just pop up right now. They're like Pop-Tarts. They done popped up around here. And they want to be the you-know-what all of a sudden, talking all the ish. But they ain't got no skin in the game. They ain't got no blood, no sweat, no tears, no nothing in the game for our people. Okay? So now we told this officer, Tosin, who worked in the Southwestern District, committed suicide, is what we're told, over in his home off of Craddock and St. George's, which is near Morgan State University, near the Alameda. But yet, they got a police officer sitting in front of his home. If he committed suicide, why you got a police officer sitting on the house, man? That's the first question you got to ask. How come you ain't heard from the police commissioner? You ain't seen Jane Miller talking about it. But again, most of this fake news media ain't asking half the questions we ask about what went down on Monday down there at 100 Pratt Street with that so-called van in the garage. And if it was all that, why y'all towing the van out there, man? It's just too many questions. So you got to stay watchful, stay vigilant. Then we saw this story of the feds that I talked about a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, raiding the offices of attorney Charles Ravenel. Now, Ravenel's had a checkered past for a long time. Ravenel was the defense attorney for a guy by the name of Warren Grace. Warren Grace was the guy that was being tried by Assistant U.S. Attorney Jonathan Luna the night Jonathan Luna was killed. That they wanted Jonathan Luna to accept the plea deal from Warren Grace, and Luna said, I can't accept the plea deal because the guy got a body on him, which means he had some dead bodies on him. Luna gets a call, it's alleged, from Ravenel that he wants to meet with him. Luna goes downstairs, never to make it back upstairs. His glasses, his phone, everything's left upstairs in that federal building, which was guarded by the FBI. You can't just walk into a federal building, and this was after September the 11th. You can't just walk in a federal building without going like you going through airport security for the most part. So nobody has ever explained what happened to Jonathan Luna, how he left Baltimore, went through the tunnel. Somebody's driving his car going through the tunnel. They never show you no videotapes, which means the state police and Maryland Department of Transportation had to be in on what happened to Luna. Okay? Be clear about that. Crystal clear. All right? Luna is then taken through Pennsylvania and killed in Pennsylvania in a quarry in Pennsylvania. Stabbed 36 times. Then he's shot and found in a quarry. And I think the white guy who I interviewed up out of that part of Pennsylvania, who wrote the book called Bill Kiesling is his name, called the William Bill Kiesling, The Long Ride of Jonathan Luna. But in the book he talks about Ravenel. Let's be clear about that. So now Ravenel office gets raided, right? It's an article in yesterday's paper and today's paper, in which they say not only Ravenel, but Joshua Treen. So I asked, what's the chances of 2 law firms being raided in 1 year in less than 6 months, man? You had Kathy Pugh's lawyer office get raided, Steve Silverman. Now you get Ravenel's lawyer's office, in the office where he worked. He used to work with Billy Murphy. Check that out. He used to work with Billy Murphy under Murphy and Falcone. Then he leaves that, right? And then he goes and works for Brown, Goldstein, and Levy, or Brown, Levy, and Goldstein. That's interesting. So keep your eyes open on this with Kenneth Ravenel, because there's more to this. And which they're saying he was, of course, washing dirty money for some drug dealers. And this kind of goes back to what Judge Kenneth LaVon Johnson said when he ordered that famous grand jury report. And if you want to talk about how to clean up corruption in Baltimore City, as my brother David Anthony Wiggins have always said, you got to have a federal grand jury and a state grand jury. And you begin to clean up. Not the little boys on the corner that ain't nothing, but if they worked at McDonald's, they just working fries and shakes, man. We talking about the money launderers, the bankers. We talking about the lawyers. We talking about the judges. We talking about those in the state's attorney's office. That's how you begin to clean it up, man. Politicians got to go to jail or go to the cemetery. That's the bottom line. Some of them got to go to jail or go to cemetery. You go to jail or go to the nail, whatever the nail is. Nail them in the coffin, man. But again, keep your eyes open on the story. That was in today's paper right there. Feds, lawyers linked to crime. Allegations includes helping drug dealers and obstructing justice, man. They talking about Kenneth Ravenel. That's in yesterday's paper. I didn't bring the ones from yesterday. And today's paper. So, there's old saying, don't go to bed with a price on your head. Question is, what price is it on Ravenel? And of course, suspicious van forces downtown evacuation. Vehicle was found to be filled with 80 gallons of diesel fuel. And they've yet to explain what really happened downtown on Pratt Street, as I said before. And all of this, as I said before, right there, Trump, U.S. Taliban talks dead. Now, that's interesting. They say Trump going to talk to the Taliban. And some of y'all say he coming to Baltimore, you don't want to talk to him. Wait a minute, man. He can talk to the Taliban? He can talk to the Taliban and talk to the Prime Minister of North Korea, but he can't talk to some brothers and sisters with some quick kink up in their head, man. Come on. So again, you tune to the State of the City. And again, as I said before, this other article regarding lawsuits mount over police. I'm going to have to eventually talk about that. This was in Sunday's paper talking about the Gun Trace Task Force. And as I said before, another officer, I think his name is Carmen Vignola, who was just indicted yesterday because he was planting guns. And they said that him and Keith Gladstone, Sergeant Keith Gladstone, who was the one that was called to the scene back in December when Wayne Jenkins, Detective, what's the other one name? Ryan Guillen ran into those 2 young men at that time, Umar Burley and Brent Matthews. But as they was chasing them, they were chasing him and they crashed into Mr. Elberly Davis and his wife. Mr. Elberly Davis died. Then Ryan Guillen gets out with Jenkins and makes a phone call to Gladstone to bring the drugs, to plant the drugs at the scene of the crime. Gladstone got charged with a lesser crime, faces 10 years in prison. Now it's come out that this guy, Carmen, I think that was his name, Carmen Vignola, he and Gladstone went to another officer's home to retrieve another BB gun, showing you that this is what you call negative retention of keeping these officers on the force, knowing these officers were carrying out these crimes, man. These officers were supposed to have been charged and released a long time ago. They said that the state's attorney refused to bring charges. Well, who was the state attorney at that time? Gregory Bernstein. Who's Greg Bernstein's wife? Cheryl Goldstein, right? Who is now working as the chief of staff to Mayor Jack Young, man. So it lets you see that the criminals returned to the scene of the crime because these people have come back now. That they didn't want to bring charges against these officers. And Jane Bledsoe was working down there under Bernstein. And now she's working down in the state's attorney's office under Merlin Mosby. And as I mentioned about, what's the guy name I mentioned? Ravenel? That the same, one of the other lawyers that works in Brown, Goldstein, and Levy is a lawyer by the name of Martin Cadigan. Martin Cadigan is the treasurer for the Teflon Don leprechaun, Martin O'Malley, and he's also the treasurer for Merlin Mosby. Now, I don't know if he's the treasurer for Brandon Scott. I have to look into that. But Martin Cadigan is the treasurer for O'Malley and Merlin Mosby. So it lets you know who really controls Merlin Mosby. Let's be clear about that. For some of you to keep saying she's something new and true, no, she look cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She's a free-for-all girl, as I've been told, okay? It's like they passed Sheila around, passed Stephanie around, passed Kathy around. That marriage between Merlin and Nick is just on paper, baby. It's just on paper. That's it. I told y'all when O'Malley was giving him money to run against Belinda Conaway, his name was Nick Owes Me, or Dick Owes Me, or Slick Mosby for the most part. O'Malley controlled him. O'Malley and that Irish Catholic mob control Merlin Mosby, Nick Mosby, Brandon Scott. Now they tell me they got videotapes of Brandon Scott. He's straight pedophile. Let's be clear about that. You can tell by his swag. All right? You can tell by his swag or lack thereof swag, all right? They tell me they got videotape on Brandon Scott down there in City Hall with young boys. So if they put him in there, it's only because the powers that be want him in there because they can control him, okay? Everything happening in the city, you see him popping around. Like old swag, can't wait to get his picture out there and on the camera. You see him? Can't wait. He got waiting for a Kodak moment. Anything happen, you see him out there, man. So I'm warning you about Brandon Scott, okay? For some of you that's running around here trying to push Brandon Scott on the people, he ain't no better than Jack Young, okay? Let's be clear about that. So with that, we'll put a pause in it. We'll open up the lines if you got a thought, question, comment on September the 11th, 2001, more commonly referred to as 9/11. But for some of you now, you want to know why the Patriots became America's team after that? Why the Patriots became the dynasty after that? What better way to rally the American people than around the football team, which is called the king of sports in America? It's not basketball. It's no longer baseball. You know it's not hockey, right? It is football. So the Patriots became America's team, and they won their first Super Bowl if you go back and just look at it. September the 11th, that's all, in 2001. And since then, they won more Super Bowls than any other team, and they'll continue to do it. So because Super Bowls are not won or lost, they're given to them. Let's be clear about that, all right? But I know, y'all the same one want to still believe in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. Yeah, come on, Muhammad, why are you going to tell me that, right? Y'all ain't see that game the other night? You didn't think that was scripted? I know. You really think they just, okay. All right. Let me open up the lines. You got a thought, question, comment, phone number to get in on the conversation, 404-436-1277. You listen to the State of the City at Radio on Fire. I'm your host, Brother Muhammad. No, I gave you a lot, but I wasn't here last week, so had a family engagement, couldn't get out of it. So we had a lot we had to get into, of course, tonight. And, of course, I'm just scratching the surface on this police gun trace task force. Because as Merlin Mosby said, 800 cases or 80 to 800. No, you got over 2,000 cases, man. And if you listen to my show Saturday, I had honored to have Brother Scooter on from Cherry Hill, brother named Clarence Shipley, in jail for 27 years, exonerated. Now, y'all know about the Central Park 5, thanks to, again, those that just trying to use them as the Central Park Pimped 5. We got some brothers in Baltimore, 5 if not more, man, that was in jail unlawfully, didn't commit the murders, and now they're asking the Board of Public Works, which is the board that meets on Wednesday in Annapolis. made up of Comptroller Francho, Treasurer Nancy Kopp, and Boss Hogg, right? Boss Hogg, Larry Hogan, to give them $12 million, right? But Larry Hogan don't want to talk about that, and he certainly don't want to talk about 50% black male unemployment in Baltimore City, but he wants to come here and talk about he really want to fight crime. The mere fact that you got 50% black male unemployment is a crime. Mere fact you can't get him to talk about getting the lead out of water Baltimore City public schools is a crime. And if the issue was accountability of the money, last I checked, Kiefer Mitchell's still working for him. You know, Kiefer Mitchell, the one that watered down the Mitchell talent pool when he married out. Well, I ain't even gonna get into that. But Kiefer Mitchell, if Kiefer Mitchell is the liaison between Baltimore City and Annapolis, then you let Kiefer Mitchell keep his eye on the money. And if the money gets funny, then he got to report back to you as the governor. And then you report your state special prosecutor to investigate where the money's going. Somebody got to go to jail. But if you hear about all this corruption in Baltimore City and all you want to focus on is Man, Riri, Mookie, and Pookie, Nookie, Pookie, Troubles, and Bubble, then you ain't really trying to solve crime in Baltimore City. FBI put up a billboard, said, if you know about public corruption, call us. Last I checked, ain't no public official turned in no damn body. Jack ain't turned in nobody. Brandon Scott ain't turned in nobody. Joan, what's her name? Joan Pratt, talking about the Associated Black Charities. All she got to do is pick up the phone and call the FBI. Call the state special prosecutor. Say we got some shenanigans going on down here regarding Associated Black Charities. Right? But nobody wants to do that, man. So you leave it on, of course, others that have to do your job that you won't do. Imagine that. Somebody got to come to this city and clean up the alleys that the mayor won't send the Department of Public Works out to clean up, man. And y'all get mad because the white boy, what's his name, Scott Presley? Hey, look, man, Muslim Elijah Muhammad said, don't condemn a dirty glass. Just put a clean glass next to it. So if you were in the city and you're supposed to be an activist, then you get out and clean up that alley next to him and put it next to his and say, this is what we doing in our city. Has some righteous competitions. But the mere fact that you got a traveling trashman coming here to clean up, I mean, even when William Donald Gafer was living, Gafer be like, do it now. Get out there and get it done, man. You ain't gonna show me up in my city. But your mayor ain't do that. Your city council president didn't do that. I mean, at least Pinkett, he tried to get out there and clean with them. But that means they don't have no street muscle. They can't get out there and put their hands on an army of people, which is the best resource that you have. The army of people, to be able to get the people to come out and respond, man. And that's what's missing. And you got to love the people. That's the other thing. Because people don't care how much you know till they know how much you really love them and care for them for the most part. And you saw black women and others saying, hey, we appreciate them coming here and clean up the city, man. Something that, and to clean up the alley. Something that, because black women say you call 411 and they tell you call 311. He called 311, they tell you call 211. And something, and it never gets done. They'll give, first thing they do is give you a requisite or a number that you call in. That's what they do. People don't want that. They want you to just do it right now. Get the work done, man. If somebody say, look, they dumping in my alley. And then the city will take living classroom, pay them to come and pick it up, man. When you got city workers that they can send out to do that. I didn't even see youth works out the whole summer except one time. How you gonna have all these people, young people working in youth works, and you ain't seen them picking up no trash the whole summer, man? And they work for 5 weeks in the city looking like this. Shameful is what it is. So let me open up the lines. You got a thought, question, comment? Maybe we'll go for what? Another 15, 20 minutes, bro? All right, my brother D said we can go for another 15, 20 minutes. So if you got a thought, question, comment, 404-436-1277. You can hit us up on, of course, Radio on Fire Facebook, on Radio on Fire on YouTube, or State of the City Facebook page as well. With that, we got any callers on the line?
No.
No callers on the line.
But we got a whole lot of comments.
Got a whole lot of comments on Facebook?
Yes.
All right, let's start with the comments, man.
This is from YouTube. It's saying, all right, brother Darren Muhammad, peace and blessings to you, brother.
Peace right at you. Who's that?
That's John Doe.
John Doe. Thank you, brother John Doe. That's the biggest family in the city, the Does. All right, let's keep it going.
Also, another comment says, there have been so many documentaries about 9/11 and what really happened.
Absolutely.
And somebody else said, Minister Farrakhan talked about the lies and trickery of 9/11. The neocons and Israel was behind it all.
That's right. Yeah, they were Israel. You had the Saudis, and of course you can't forget the neocons. And we talk about those that sits on the board of the Project for New American Century, and then of course rogue elements within the United States military who accepted those stand down orders of what happened on that particular day. The greatest stand down since Pearl Harbor, but that's what they wanted because they wanted a cataclysmic style event that they could use to rally the American people, and that's what they used, of course, September the 11th. Good question. Thank you.
Somebody else said, this should be a day of healing instead of spreading hatred. You should be ashamed of yourself.
That's not hatred. The only hate is you hate to hear the truth. That's the only hatred, that you hate to hear the truth. That's all. And so when you say healing, no, we need to be real. That's what we need, a day of being real. That's the bottom line on that. But you need truth, because once you don't have truth, then you live in spiritual slavery. You got to have those that love you enough that even though you hate yourself and you hate to hear the truth, that they're willing to tell you the truth. And it's on you now, because your blood is off my hands if you still believing what they told you happened 18 years ago. Because you're the same one to believe that John F. Kennedy was assassinated by a lone assailant. You're the same one to believe that Dr. King was assassinated by a lone assailant. So again, my job is to free those that want to be free. If you want to stay in slavery and in bondage because you don't have the truth, then stay right there. This is not for you. But for others that want it, the best truth that you can give them and the best healing is truth. And that's the best medicine to give them as well. Okay? Next question.
You have Democrats and some Republicans talking reckless about Trump talking to the Taliban at Camp David. What are your thoughts?
Bush met with him. Obama met with him. So again, as I've said before and throughout the history, God met with the devil, didn't he? So you owe it to sit down with your enemies, right? All throughout history that's taking place. So again, the only question is, again, once they get up from the table, what comes from that? Same way Trump met with the Prime Minister of North Korea, right? That's all. So you got to be willing to do that. That's all. And so we can't condemn it. You have to look at what comes out of that. But if the Taliban is in a condition and in a position to help bring peace in that corridor, because you got the Zionists that's trying to bring war between India and Pakistan along that Kashmir border again. They back at it. When I say the Zionists, they want that area, they want that land, and they know those are two nuclear states. They couldn't get it in Syria, they couldn't get it with Russia, so now they're trying to manipulate right there on that border between India and Pakistan again. That's all. So this is their plans to try to force Trump's hand, and Trump is smart enough, and if he really smart enough, he would join on in terms of that one belt, Silk Road. That's what's written about and talked about in the book, I believe, Huntington, Clash of Civilizations. Also, the Brzezinski, that grand chessboard, because the grand chessboard is Africa and Central Asia in terms of the resources that are there. And Pakistan is in Central Asia. Afghanistan, which has the largest amounts of, what am I thinking about? The resource that's there that they use for your batteries and everything else. All of that comes out of Afghanistan. Not just the poppy seeds that's there, but they sit on the largest amount of, it's right on my mind. I can't think of what it is, but you could Google it and you'll see that Afghanistan has it. And they're tied to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So those are a lot of those, what they call Western or Central Asian nations. Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, all of them are tied into that in terms of that region right there. So Afghanistan is very strategic in terms of the resources that are there. Next question.
You would never hear this on Fox 45.
Absolutely not. You ain't gonna hear it on Channel 2, ABC, NBC, CB. You ain't gonna hear it on BET. Let's be clear about that. All right? Station's been taken over. You ain't gonna hear it on too many Radio 1 stations. They've been taken over. You ain't gonna hear it on no Tom Joyner, Al Sharpton, Steve Harvey. Who else? Ricky Smiley. You're not gonna. D.L. Hughley. You're not gonna hear this.
Yeah.
No. That's why these kind of shows and flows and info are so important to support as well. Next question, thought, comment, brother?
It said, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
For the info.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna read this, I guess.
Okay.
A lot of what you're saying is racist.
A lot of what I'm saying is racist.
It's a comment.
Well, they got to right to that comment. That's their way of trying to dismiss what I'm saying. A lot of what I'm saying is racist. It's true. So again, but even if you believe that, say somebody that play a violin is a violinist, right? Right. Somebody play the piano is called what? A pianist, right? Well, if I love my race, then you can call me a racist in that sense, all right? Next question. Thank you very much. Every knock is a boost. That's all. Thank you for the boost.
One thing for sure, that President Bush code word that was used to get the New England Patriots to win the Super Bowl was the word patriot, patriotism, and that flag was pushed continuously on this place until dropping bombs. This is written a little crazy.
Not only that, but then they begin the policy. They begin the policy, right, of giving money to NFL teams so that they could display what they call patriotism, not real patriotism, superficial, artificial patriotism, right? Before the game, halftime of the game, and after the game, they called it saluting, right? America's first responders, all that, right? Right. And so and then that began, and then Obama took it another step and giving them more money, and then of course it became a whole story with but all that was predicted with the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, right? That was just social engineering of the people, and then most people, hopefully, they could see that by now. If you don't, then I'm sorry for you right now. As Malcolm X said, if you ain't thinking like you supposed to, he said in the 60s, if you black, you should be thinking black. If you black and you ain't thinking black at this late date, then I'm sorry for you. If you're a patriot, if you're a human being and you ain't thinking like a patriot and a human being, and I ain't talking about a patriot waving a red, white, and blue flag, man, okay? Then I'm sorry for you. Next question.
We have a new major on the left and a new police chief on the right. And right in the middle is every drug known to man being sold. I never understood that.
Right. Absolutely. Well, the other thing you saw, I don't know if you heard today, but they were talking about this whole thing with Purdue that owned Oxycontin, the makers of Oxycontin.
Yep.
Being like sued, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So they stopped making it. How come you don't hear nobody talking about the same thing with those that make fentanyl? Right? They got running rampant in our cities, right?
Yeah, they hasn't come yet.
They talk about the homicides, but they ain't talking about the drug overdoses in Baltimore City, right? They talk about the squeegee boys, but they ain't talking about all these white, black, red, brown, and yellow addicts you see up and down in the middle of the streets, hung out, strung out with the tongue out, right? That you finding in abandoned buildings and everything, man. More of them are dying than people being killed in the city. And Hogan ain't talking about that. The only thing they offering up is to open up more opioid treatment centers for the most part, which they are saturating in the black communities, right? Yeah. So this is what we see going on. But if they were able to make Purdue, the makers of oxycodone or Oxycontin, now you got to go after the fentanyl. Then you go after the gun manufacturers, because the guns that are killing people in this city are not registered guns, but they're illegal guns. And nobody's talking about how do you go after the gun manufacturers. You got to repeal, I think it was the 2005 Lawful Commerce Protection and Firearms Protection Act that George Bush signed, and that would allow mothers and families of murdered victims to sue the gun manufacturers that are making these guns that are not, again, because you're not using the gun responsibly when they ended up in the hands of those that are using the guns and snuffing out the lives of American people, black, brown, red, yellow, and white. So that's what's not being talked about. So that's what Bloomberg won't talk about as well, even though he's financing these groups like Moms Demand Action, Students Demand Action, Every Town for Gun Safety. All that is really going after law-abiding citizens that are carrying guns, not those that are carrying guns illegally in these cities and countries, or cities and states across America. Next question.
Did you see Dave Chappelle, and do you have thoughts on the controversy?
Well, there is no controversy. Of course, Dave Chappelle, as a comedian, right, he got a right to his opinion in terms of what he said. I didn't see it, but I know there was comments about him talking about the boys who getting paid now to come back and say Michael Jackson did something to them, right? Mm-hmm. So if they had that information then, don't you know Michael Jackson would have been in jail, man, right? So there was nothing going on. But they used this opportunistic time, and then Oprah Winfrey used it, opportunistic time, right? to go after Michael Jackson and go after Michael Jackson's estate. That's what she did. Even though HBO had a clause with Michael Jackson that they had signed with him and his management way back when. So they violated the clause that they set up and established with him. So that's the interesting part in terms of what they were trying to do. So Dave Chappelle was right in what he had to say, and he has a right to be able to say that. But we're at a time that, of course, you have those that don't want any discussion like that to take place.
What do you mean Obama did not kill bin Laden?
Exactly what I said, man. He took a script from what's the movie? What's the Transformer movie where they said they killed Megatron and threw him in the ocean and all that? They used the same script, man, where they said they killed Osama bin Laden, had a service, and dropped him in the ocean, man. It never happened. That's all I'm saying. It never happened. If it did, where's the video? It never happened. They made all that up, man. That's all that was. Tell me, we're in the situation room and we saw them get bit. Come on, man. That was game. That was theater that they played on you. That's all that was. And it was doing, I'm trying to remember what anniversary that was that they did it. Was that in May when they did that? I think it was May. Was that on May 1st when it happened?
I don't remember what it was.
I think it was May 1st, which of course, you know, that's Illuminati's Founders Day, man. But it never happened. That's all I'm saying. And then the guys that went along with the story, all them Navy SEALs, you know all them was killed, right?
Some.
Except Chris, what was the one that was killed on the firing range? Chris, his name escapes me. Not Chris Seal. His name escapes me. The guy say he accidentally shot him in the head, man. All them, that helicopter crash, all them was killed. They was making that stuff up, man. That's all they was doing. Talking about they saw them get bin Laden, and then they dropped them in the ocean and all. Come on, man. Come on. All right, next question. Never happened. That's all I'm saying. Never happened.
Trump is going to be impeached.
What's that song Sunshine Anderson say?
Heard it all before?
Heard it all before, right? Heard it all before, man. We get ready to go into re-election. When he first got in, they said, now you know all that came out, that all that was a bunch of lies. You know, the Judicial Watch been exposing that information, right? About Hillary, about Comey, and all of them. You know that, right?
What information specifically?
That whole fusion, the people that wrote the report,
GPS,
all that. GPS. You know all that. You know all that's been debunked now, right?
As far as the dossier and stuff like that?
All that, right. All that's been debunked, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, they didn't say all that stuff wasn't true.
So they stopped talking about it now. So then they say Trump, they went from talking, they don't talk about that no more. They say Trump's a racist is what they talk about now, right? Trump will be reelected, man, before this is all over said and done. That's all I'm saying.
Unless they have a better Democratic candidates, none of these candidates can beat him.
Right. Trump will be reelected. That's going to be the bottom line. I told him before. That's all. What our people should be doing is looking at what we can get out of these opportunity zones. You know, he signed legislation last year. HBCUs are sitting in a lot of these opportunity zones. Question is, what are they going to do? Otherwise, HBCUs going to get taken over, man. Be clear about that. Them whites start coming to the HBCUs, they get minority scholarships. Them Indians start coming to HBCUs, they get minority scholarships. If y'all haven't been able to figure that one out by now, man, HBCUs are in the area that can do some major help and development of the black community, man. And that's where that HBCU opportunity zone. If you go to my page, I posted the article, but yet Governor Hogan ain't talking about that. Lieutenant Governor Rutherford, he's not talking about it at infinitum to the HBCU presidents. The HBCU presidents, most of them boule, they know about it, but they're not telling the citizens about it. So they getting ready to line their pockets up with that, man. But they're not telling citizens about the HBCU, and it's on my page, the HBCU and how they're tied to, again, as I said before, the opportunity zone. So that's real. Next question.
Osama bin Laden has been an operative for the CIA for years.
Yes.
Bush family and bin Laden family have been partners for years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they have a construction company, Bin Laden Construction, one of the biggest ones in Saudi Arabia, all over the Middle East, man. So, and they had an oil company called Arbusto Oil, which George Bush and the boys had then. Yes.
Okay, so they definitely have been partners in business, oil, yes, and all that kind of stuff. Could it still be possible that bin Laden was the black sheep and went rogue and the family's still trying to do business. You know, you got one family member that's just kind of wilding out and like take things a little bit too far. Is that possible?
Anything's possible, but the fact is his brother Salim bin Laden and others are still, you know, tight with the Bush family as well.
Yeah, because it's like we making money together, but you know, one of your family members wilding out.
You got the Bush family. You got what am I thinking about? The group that Carlucci and John Majors and them were with. The big defense company. The name escapes me right now. But all of them was working. All of them was working together, making money, and making a killing all at the same time, man. Blackwater. Trying to think of the company right now. It'll come to me. Somebody may be watching might know it. Chris Lyles was the sniper. I mean, was the other Navy SEALs that we were talking about.
Right.
Chris Lyles.
Oh,
right. But yeah, they all work together. The Bush family. So
someone's asking for more information on the opportunity zones. What exactly can we get?
There's a lot you can get, and the interesting thing is that the inside man that Baltimore City has is Ben Carson, man. Ben Carson is from Baltimore, but yet you see how the church supposedly treated him when he came, right? They should have rolled out the red carpet for Ross McNutt, a man that want to bring a spy plane, but they don't want to roll out the red carpet for John and Laura Arnold, but not for Ben Carson to say, let's sit. We might
There's
disagree with you.
There's a reason why, though.
But let's sit. You know, they mad with Trump.
Yes.
So what they try to do is take it out on Ben Carson. But you can't be childlike. And when we talking about business right now, we talking about ain't no other group gonna do that but our people. The Jews can be mad with him, but if you better know, if he go up on the other side of Park Heights, they sitting down, man, talking about what they gonna get out of it for themselves, okay? Let's be real about that, all right? We the only ones gonna be childlike. I'm mad with him, so I ain't gonna sit down with you, right? So you're gonna lose out rather than put that aside to say, let's look at what's in the best interest for the masses of our people. With him being right there, that's all. So we have to take advantage of that. They playing chess. We playing checkers, man. We can't play checkers. Some of us ain't even playing Connect 4 right now to be able to connect some dots here. All right? So we'll take a few more questions so we wrap up.
One of the main reasons why the HBCUs are going under is because of those damn boule Negroes letting it go under and looking out for their best interests.
Yeah, it's very true that some of them are boulets as well. So we have to look at that in terms of, again, those that are the gatekeepers at those schools. Somebody sent a piece, I think, a question talking about talking about Ed Norris. Every time there's something happens in Baltimore City, that's who the media goes to, Ed Norris, man, a convicted felon. You mean you ain't got some police officers that retired and didn't do no time in jail that they could ask? They stopped asking Dr. Tyrone Powers for the most part, right? He started to look like he wearing mascara every time I see him, man. I'd be like, damn, you know? So Norris is the only one they go to when something happens and ask questions of Ed Norris, man. And of course, Norris got a history with Stephanie Rawlins, Sheila Dixon. I mean, all this was going on, man. After September the 11th, they was going on these excursions up to New York, man. Bar hopping, hotel stopping, and panties dropping down in them hotels up there in New York. And it was so bad that Gary McElhaney, yes, Gary McElhaney, Claude Boatwright. I know you know Gary McElhaney, right? McElhaney left his wife for Katie Lehan. Katie Lehan was working at Channel 13. They said on her desk she had a framed picture of her and Ed Norris, man. And they said they told her that she was what do you call that, conflict of interest, right? She crossed the line, but she didn't just cross the lines, man, okay? And then they said Katie Lehan was leaving to take a job with the CIA. And I said, that white woman can't even spell CIA. She might say CIA, but not no CIA for the most part, where she was running with Ed Norris. And the conventions got canceled up in New York, man. And they still went up to New York because they were bar hopping, hotel stopping, and panty dropping. They was going up there having political orgies, man, is what they was doing up there in them hotels up there. All this came out publicly. And anytime any of them want to debate it, we can debate it. But if y'all been listening to me, you know, I've been real nice to some of them. But you know, I know their history, man. Sheila Triggin Dixon, okay? Stephanie Rawlins, Kathy Pugh. Y'all know Kathy Pugh was a loose goose a long time ago. When she's running around here with Dorothy Brunson. Y'all know that chick was loose. You know that, man. And Sheila Dixon always liked them young boys. And wasn't nothing she wouldn't do for them or do to them. Okay? So please stop trying to clean up these zeros and make them heroes for our people, man. Nothing could be further from the truth. We got any more calls coming, so we got to wrap up, my brother.
Baltimore black people have been known to be childish. I have some of them in my family.
Yeah, they can be. You know what I mean? Throwing temper tantrums. They stop speaking to you for a whole year over foolishness, man. You know what I mean? Stop. I mean, that's a mindset. I mean, it's not germane to Baltimore, but it's a mindset for sure in Baltimore. And I've lived here most of my life, man, raised here. Be more born, be more raised, and when I die, C. Miles said, gonna be in a be more grave, man. So I know that be more mindset, brother. All right? Thank you. And sister, next question.
So you don't believe that something was, I guess you're trying to say something was in the van.
I don't know what was in the van, but all I know, they haven't said, show us who drove the van there, when was it parked, who owns the van, who's it registered to, right? And what was really in the van. And there was something in the van, and they say it was some diesel fuel. I mean, usually, look, man, I work at a place where some guys try to sell some gas to some truck drivers. One of the guys forgot to put the handle on. Gas leaked out. They had to call hazmat, man. You ain't see no hazmat come in the other day, did you? They come in with the white suits, right? Everything on. You got to clean that stuff up, man. They said that the oil was leaking. So you see anybody in hazmats? Outfits, uniforms, nothing like that, right?
No, I didn't.
So come on, man. That's all I'm saying. Just use your common sense. Use deductive reasoning of what they're telling you, what they're selling you, what they're showing you or not showing you. And this happened in a little small area near my job, right there near Broadway Services, and that little what do you call them? What do you call those places where you store your furniture? Storage facility. Guy was selling some of their oil to some of the truckers, and they got to hang the handle up, and it leaked out, and they had to call hazmat, man. And that oil was leaking like that. They had to call hazmat, bro. So what they was telling us, if all that oil was leaking, how come we ain't see no hazmat teams down there, man? That's all I'm saying. Think. The minute you stop thinking is the minute they got you. The minute you stop questioning is the minute they got you. Question everything. Take one or two more, and then we got to be getting to wrap up.
Who are you voting for in the Baltimore mayoral election?
Might be you if you're running. Might be you if you're running. Based on who they got right now, it might be you if you're running. I know who I'm not voting for, Catalina Bird. Please don't bring me Catalina Bird, man. Please don't. She be on square off. Another $2, you know what, man. They be passing around in this city. She be on square off, she go to commercial, she got a long weave, come back, she got a short weave, man. She looking unbelievable. Damn that, not me. All right? She can't be trusted in no way, shape, or form. Don't bring me Sheila, Trick, and Dixon. Any of them ones that's been there before that created all this problem we see in the city of Baltimore. Because they're compromising Cleopatras, as Dr. Francis Cress Weldon said. We need some fighting Nefertiti's or fighting Nefertiris. Not these compromising Cleopatras. That's the bottom line. So with that, we better have an agenda rather than be talking about who we want to vote for. This ain't no contest like, what do you call that, American Idol, Baltimore Idol. We got to have an agenda. Jews don't be asking about who you going to vote for. You listen to white radio, you don't never hear no Jews on radio talking about who's the Jewish community voting for, right? They don't have them. Irish don't be saying that, man. But they know whoever in there, they going to execute their agenda. We got to have an agenda. And then if you ain't carrying out our agenda, got to be some consequences and repercussions, man. That's what has to happen. That's what other groups do to them. So with that, last question, comment before we got to begin to wrap up.
Oh, wow. They really went in on Catalina Bird.
Yeah, well, who would? Everybody else go in on it. That's their motto. Baltimore, get in on it. You know what I mean? They put her on the so-called consent decree board. She want to be on this board, that board. These are people that never stood for anything in their life, man. Her claim to fame is she's Victor Clark or whatever his name, whatever her father is, he's a Republican. That's her claim to fame, man. Catalina Bird ain't never been no activist in this city. Always trying to find another white man to get a free ride of, then come back uptown and want to beat down black men and tell us about how she buried 3 husbands that's been killed because they was drug dealers or whatever. Who gives a damn, man? You understand? I don't give a damn about that. I mean, in terms of that kind of foolishness, because of that, we supposed to listen to you because of that? She ain't never stood on no principles. She stand for principalities, but don't never stand on no principles. And I tell her that to her face. And any of the rest of them that try to sell Catalina Bird or any of the rest of them to our people that know them, man. She had a drunk driving charge, right? Now all these brothers get arrested. You don't hear talking about all these arrested these brothers? Yeah, she had my good sister, Delegate Jill Carter, be her lawyer and get her drunk driving on the stet docket. You think she can do that for all these other brothers around here that's victims of the gun trace task force? Hell no. She be running around here talking about how she be running around here with what was the police officer that they got rid of? He lived in Delaware. What Melvin Russell? She be running around here with Melvin Russell and them having a turkey bowl, man. While black men being killed, they having a goddamn turkey bowl. Ain't nobody worrying about no turkey bowl. They about a flag football game with the police department. I don't play them to have no damn flag football game. Get up and do some real work in the city. You play flag football with some children. Speaking of children, some of the children, you can't even get lights on the field. You run around here because she that new bed wench talking about they having a flag football game, a turkey bowl with the police department. Now they got this other guy, Branford. He the one giving up money. They had an article talking about how he's giving up money. Donnie Glover. Michael Johnson got mad with me the other day for saying it. Now, if it don't apply, let it fly. But if you did, you did. If you didn't, you didn't. They say he was the one that gave money to Donnie Glover and them that had that Pennsylvania Avenue Cadillac parade back in June. And the brothers, they tell me the young boys knocked Donnie Glover out in the middle of the street down there on Carrollton Avenue. Said he working with the police department. Said they knocked him out in the middle of the street, man. So now they come back last week or 2 weeks ago and they had, I don't know, what was that parade just called? Pennsylvania Avenue Parade?
On the Saturday,
Saturday and Sunday. And Michael Johnson did that. Now let me let you in on something, because I usually don't talk about it. Michael Johnson called me and asked me that he needed some security for that parade he was going to be having. He asked me for the members of the brothers in the Nation of Islam, right? So I gave Brother Michael Johnson a number. He called, get security, right? So, of course, the Sister Cynthia Muhammad, I used to teach her sons, Brother Emmanuel and Brother Isaiah Muhammad, who are now high up in the ranks in the mosque number 6. So they obviously got the contract, right? They didn't even have the audacity. Michael Johnson sent me a text message to say thank you. He ain't called me to ask. He ain't sent me no text message to ask about security. They ain't think about sending a donation to support the show, right? Charity begins at home, man. But yet he'll run on Larry Young show. That old broke back, gender bender, diaper swiper, semen demon Larry Young. You understand? Right? He can't wait to run his ass on his show and kiss his ring, man. See, I begin to lose respect when men act like that. And then the brothers in the mosque ain't called me. They got paid off that contract. They got paid. Michael Johnson sent me a picture of him posing with the brothers, but he ain't called me to thank me publicly. But he called me to ask me and said he needed security to lock down that parade he knew he was going to have, right? So just be mindful how you treat Brother Muhammad. Because some of y'all, when you get in trouble, then you call me. Treat me like you treat God, like I'm a damn cardigan sweater. When everything all right, I don't need Brother Muhammad. You get in the hot seat, then you call Brother Muhammad. See? So I watch your movements, Brother Michael. No disrespect, still love you, but I watch your movements. And Donnie Glover, I've always told you why it's Donnie Glover, okay? But clearly the police department are funding a lot of these fake activists. And now they funding your marches and your parades, man. Where you go around Canton, they cleaning up Canton. Canton used to be nothing but empty shells and warehouses. Fells Point, Silo Point. You go over there, man, they building a whole new world over there. Come up Pennsylvania Avenue, Gold Street, Drew Hill Avenue, what you see being built for the most part, man. Senior citizen buildings, that's about it. They got you having a parade on Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the Billie Holiday statue. But they ain't rebuilding nothing on Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the sad reality. While you get reduced to doing what we did in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. A parade. You understand? A parade, man. That's nice. But where's the money to build up our communities is all I'm saying, man. Where's the money? Where's the opportunity to build up our communities and then give amnesty to all these brothers that have come home through the First Step Act and hire these brothers so they can be working as opposed to seeing all the Hispanics working in our community. It got so bad, the brothers started sticking up the Hispanic guys working on Pennsylvania North Avenue. You know that, right? They started robbing them while they was down in the hole, man. Then next thing you know, the city hired private security to guard the construction sites where the Hispanics was working at because the brothers was robbing them. You understand? All right? Why not just hire the brothers and you won't have to worry about that? You ain't got to hire no security and you damn sure ain't got to hire Raul and them. You know what I mean? They'll work. Let them work in their communities. Let them work, of course, to build where they can work at. But we should be having brothers working to build up our communities as well. And lastly, I saw PM Smith running around here talking all that yak. I went over to his church over there, Hubert Memorial. Guess who he had doing the lawn care over there, man? Bunch of Hispanics. I ain't seen no Hispanic member in Hubert Memorial Church, man. You understand? How do you have all these young black men, older black men in Hubert Memorial, and they can't pedicure the lawn, they can't manicure the lawn, they can't mow the lawn? They paying tithes in the church, but yet he calls Sunshine Landscape, which is out in Windsor Mill. If you don't believe me, just Google Sunshine Landscape. It's in Windsor Mill, Maryland. It was so bad, I got out and videotaped the guy. I got out and started speaking Spanish to the guy. You know what I mean? I was like, I can't believe this is a black church in the heart of the black community up and down York Road, and he got Hispanics doing the lawn care work. I bet you over there at that new building they got over there on Belvedere and Loch Raven, he got them doing work over there too, man. But that's the shameful part. Charity, clarity, parity begins at home, man. That's all. So we're going to begin to wrap up. It's 9:30. I thank my brother D. Williams, for allowing me to go a little longer. We're going to podcast the show, of course, on Radio on Fire Facebook page, YouTube page, on State of the City Facebook page. We do need your support so that we can come longer and stronger. We would like to pick up another day. So put your money not where your mouth is, but put your money where your heart should be. I know where your mouth is. You going out there trying to get that chicken sandwich from Popeyes, right? The one they sold out. If you support the State of the City and supported Radio on Fire like you did Popeyes, the sky be the limit right now. So please, make your check money order payable to State of the City or to Radio on Fire. If you're on Cash App, which all of us should be, please download Cash App and send your Cash App, because we cash strap. $ Radio on Fire, $ SOTC Muhammad, MUHAMMAD, all one word. We'll be back here next Wednesday, 7 to 9. Saturday, we're on the State of the City from 12 to 2, WFBR 1590 AM. So I thank all of you that tuned in. We got that clip, man, about Bin Laden. I think we'll close out with that piece right there. We got that song, man. We'll close out with that piece right there. Talking about September the 11th. I'll tell you how I really feel, all right? Tell you how I really feel about that, okay? So I've been your host, Brother Muhammad. Again, thank you to Brother D. Williams and Radio on Fire. And if you want to get a show over here, man, if you got some dough, you got some flow, and you got some info, then give my brother a call, man, or send him a Facebook message. You want to get a show, and you got some flow, and you got some dough. Otherwise, as the old folks say, act like you know, all right? But for now, it's time to go. We up out of here. I've been your host, Brother Muhammad. Stay watchful. Stay vigilant, because the time we in, man, a time of universal deceit. Anything I said tonight is not personal. It's based on principle. If you stand on principles, you can accept it. But if you stand on principalities, you can't accept it. So till next Wednesday, 7, and until Saturday, 12, God bless. Let's continue to clean up all this mess.
Every day,
Peace.
man. It's like these motherfuckers is just like professional liars, you know what I'm saying? It's wow. Listen, Bin Laden didn't blow up the projects.